All right, welcome back. So this is Software Development Lab, part two. I think we can just have a brief recap of what we had covered last time. I think, if I'm not wrong, the last thing we covered was how to manage users and the privileges. We had an agenda of three items, which was to create users, to assign them the privilege rights, and also to implement those rights. So I think what we did is we created the tables, we created the stored procedures, and we also saw how to create the user interface that can be used to be able to our users. I think that's where we left it at. So what we were supposed to do further was to now go ahead and dynamically populate the data of the existing users. We don't have any in our database as yet, but also we wanted to be able to bring in the privileges to show the privileges are there. Then from there, we could be able to assign them the privileges as appropriate. I think these people are not coming in early. What you should do is you should accept the link of the class that I shared. Once you accept that link, when you're joining, you're going to join quietly without disturbing anybody. I've repeated this time and again. I don't know why this instruction does not get implemented. So kindly do that. Just accept the class link that I shared before. Once you accept that class link, you can come into the class quietly without necessarily requesting me to admit into the class. I think that's a better way of us handling this. So again, that was just a recap of what we did last time so that we can see how to handle part two of this particular class. So what I'm going to do is to open a new window over here. Then I'll open Visual Studio Code, and this is the folder where we were working on this item. So if I was to run this HTML page like this, I think it should be able to show us that we have a users manager done nicely. Of course, this is not responsive yet, but you can make it responsive. The screen is small. Otherwise, if the screen is big, I think it will look just fine. Otherwise, if the screen is small, we have not made it responsive yet, but that we can be able to handle much later. What was important was for us to be able to figure out how to be able to create the user, and of course how we can now be able to dynamically load these privileges. So what we're going to do as our agenda for today will be to load the privileges, to save the user, and then of course to display the user's details. That's going to be our agenda for today. Then maybe in our next class, what we can do is we can try and see how we can actually be able to implement these privileges when the users click on links or on buttons within our screens and so forth and so forth. Going to be our agenda for today. So I'll jump back into the code. I won't focus so much on the look and feel of that. I think it's not very bad looking, but then again, we can put them side by side like that so that now we can be able to do our implementation and see what the screen looks like. Even though most of the time the data is not going to be hot loading, which means we'll have to keep on refreshing the page to be able to see what data comes what data comes back as. So just bear with me on that. So I think without wasting any time, we can go straight into this. I hope that's what we had covered as of last time. Now, I have switched screens, so I'm not seeing my other screen. So, in case you want to respond, just unmute your mic and respond because I'm not going to be able to switch back and forth on the different screens that I have. I only want to use this one here that is currently being displayed for purposes of recording this video. Yes, that's what we had covered as at last time. Is that the correct position? Anyone? I say don't type on the chat because I'm not going to read the chat. It's on another window altogether and I don't want to switch it over.
Yes, we're there.
Yeah, I'm saying that's the position we had last time, right?
Yes.
Excellent. So today I want us to start looking at how we can dynamically show these privileges so that the user can be able to tick them, then we can be able to save our user into the database. Now, this is very practical because most of the things that you're going to be doing are going to be based on the principles that you're going to learn here today. So I think I created a file called users manager.js. If I'm not wrong, Yes, it's here, but it has nothing. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use something called jQuery. So I'm going to use jQuery. It's a JavaScript library that allows me to do a lot of heavy lifting as far as fetching API data is concerned and things like that. Loading, doing animations, changing content on the page and things like that. You could use normal JavaScript, but again, I like using jQuery because of its simplicity. So it's not a must that you're going to use what I have or what I'm suggesting, but again, it's good to also learn a few things here and there so that you're able to see how different technologies work. So to use jQuery, and I think I showed us how to download it last time, you'll begin with a dollar sign because that's what signifies jQuery. Then I'm going to listen to the document. When the document has loaded everything, which means all the pages in the document and all the assets in the documents have loaded, then I'm going to run this callback function. So what I'm trying to tell, no, this is not a fat arrow, it's just a regular function. So you either decide to use a fat arrow like that, or you decide to use a regular function, what you call a function declaration. So you can't use both of them. I don't know why I was trying to use both of them. So pick one side. So what this basically what that statement means, and that's what you should always include when you want to run jQuery. We've already included jQuery as part of our file, as part of the files that we need when it comes to this particular page. So you can see I already have jQuery there, and I already downloaded it the other time, which it's here. So it has about 10,000 lines of code, and it does an amazing job of doing what we call housekeeping tasks. So I'm not focused on how jQuery is built or structured, but basically how we're going to use it to achieve the task that we have at hand. So that basically means jQuery listen when the document is ready, which means it has loaded all the assets it needs, then run the following callback function inside here. So all our code is going to be based on that. Now, one thing I need to check is I will open SQL and check if I'm able to pull um, all, sorry, I'm check if I'm able to pull all the privileges. Um, so our database is called Expedia. I don't know if it started with X or EX. I think it started with EX. So we have Expedia here, and we have objects here. These objects are the ones that we're going to give. Oh my goodness. Looks like this was uh, this was broken, right? Did I share this on GitHub? I can just download it. This is a little bit old, but I can use it anyway. So what I'm going to do is, for some strange reason, my system was corrupted. So just bear with me on this. Where is my SQL data and then Expedia? I need to remove everything from here. Then I can just go ahead and delete it. Alter actual, okay, drop. So I'll open that statement, open that file in downloads. I don't know if this had everything else that we had. Well, this doesn't have all the procedures. I didn't share the last one. I didn't share the last database we had. Well, I know this one will create it, but I doubt if it will have everything that we had done. No, it doesn't have. It doesn't have the user's details, but well, that's fine. Let's just do it all over again. I'll just create objects here. So just do it one by one. So I'll have object ID, object name, and object code. So the object ID will be integer, name will be variable character. This is going to set us back a bit, but that's fine. Object code will also be variable character, maybe say 10 at most. So this is going to be a primary key, auto increment. So what we can do here is we can come to this object because this is where the privileges are going to be, and we can say probably here object name is going to be add manage airports. So 1x001. You can use any code that you want. I like using that. Manage airlines 1 1x02. Then probably I can have something like manage cities 1x03. Manage bookings um, not countries. Manage countries 1x004. And I can go on and on. So I can put all of them. This is basically just to show us that you can be able to list all the privileges that you have in your table here. So we don't have all the assets here, but once I have all the assets like bookings and schedules and cancellations and all that, I can list all those operations inside this table, then just probably give them a unique code. Now I said why give them a unique code is because when you import this data in a different database, this ID could be different, but we want to be able to use this to validate the privileges. That's why we're giving that code. So for that, that's why I need the code. Somebody's trying to chat with me on the chat.
We cannot see your screen.
Oh, you cannot see my screen. I should have mentioned that. Sorry. I think that's better now. So what you do is it's good because I've been recording that. So still in the recording, you'll be able to see what happens. Now you can be able to see it, I believe, right?
No.
You still can be able to see my screen? Let me try that again. I'm seeing it's saying it's presenting. So let me try again. Entire screen, that, share. Can you see it now?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay, then let me just switch the windows so that I go back to where I was typing the code. Sorry, not that. Settle this down. Can you see it now? Can you see the database?
Yes.
Okay, so as I was saying, I was just recreating this database because it was corrupted before, and I just need to recreate it all over again so that we can be able to reproduce what we had done last time. So what I've done is I've created objects. I think I'll need a table for users. So there was user ID, username, first name, last name, password, salt, system admin, status, date added, added by. I can't remember all the fields, but we'll just work with what we have so that we see how this works out. So that is variable character 15. First name is variable character 100. Last name is variable character 100. And then password is variable character 100. The salt can be variable character 50, but even 40 is enough. System admin is integer. Default is 0. Status is variable character. Default is active. Date added is date time. Added by is integer. So you can have this as our user. So data, okay, this one is variable character 15. Save that. Then we have another table called user privileges. So on user privileges here, I'll have user privilege ID. That's going to be integer. Is going to be that. So I'll have object ID is integer. User ID. User ID is also integer. Status will be, let's just say active. It's Boolean. Default is 1. Then date added, date and time added by is integer. So that's user privileges. I'm just repeating the tables that we had done last time. For some strange reason, I think I did not back that up and then did not share it with you, so which is my mistake. I don't know how you guys managed to go through the assignment without it because nobody asked about it. But nonetheless, let's just repeat it all over again. So we said that what we want to do here is to be able to display or to bring about. Just maximize this. So we want to be able to show all the user privileges here. So what we need to do is to come here and get all the objects inside here. So this is what is supposed to display on the other side, where now we can be able to tick and allow the user to be able to add that privilege. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a stored procedure to extract that information. So I'll right click stored procedures here and I'll say create and I'll say sp get privileges or get objects. So get objects will get from me all the objects. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to remove the comments here that Yob is giving. I'm going to remove them like that. So here, there's no parameter, so I'll simply say select all fields from objects. Maybe the only thing you can do is to arrange them by the object name so that they are alphabetical, like that. Then I'll save this. So once that has saved successfully, because that's what you want to see, I'll pick this stored procedure here. I'll go back to my system. I'll come to what we call our models, which is here. Then the model should be something to do with the users. So inside users, I think I can, I didn't get the model, so I just checked the user, but I didn't get the model. So here I can say, create a method that's called get objects. It does not have any parameters. The SQL statement will be just that, call, then get objects like that. Then what I'll do is just to return the current object that has been created, then get JSON, then I'll pass the SQL statement. So the only thing I'll do is to test if that is actually working and give me all the objects. So I'll open Postman. Usually it's a good idea to test if it's working before you start integrating it with your application, because now debugging becomes a little bit easier if you're sure that the API endpoint is working. Actually, I have missed one point. I should have added to the controllers. So let me just come back to the controllers here and add it. So I'll come to my controller, use operations, and I'll say if the user has decided to fetch get objects, then this should be in quotes. Then what do I need to do? Sorry, I'll need to say echo users, actually user. Then I will execute this method over here, sorry, that says get objects. So this is pretty straightforward like that. So now, now this should be able to, when I say get objects, it will go to the users template, which is here. Then it will execute this method, which in turn goes to the database, gets me the objects, then converts it into a JSON object, which can now be passed over to the browser. So ideally, that's what is working over there. So I'll open Postman over here, and probably what I'll do is I'll create a new request. It's going to be a get request, and I'll say this is local host. It's going to be running on this part is this folder is called Expedia. Then inside Expedia, I have controllers.php, which is this file that actually it's not, yeah, controllers. Then inside controllers, we have user operations. So controllers is a folder. Then you have user operations.php. So this is where we want to end up. Then what you do want to do is to get objects. So you're going to pass this as a parameter. So I'll say here get objects is equals to true. Then I just go ahead and execute this and see if it gives me any results. So it's not giving me, yeah, it has given me the results. So you can see I have object name, manage airlines object code. So I have all the objects here. So this is what I kind of like expect it to return for me, which is working totally fine. So once I have that, I think now I can go back inside my users manager and now fetch the privileges and load to this div. Now, what I need to understand is what is this div inside here. So if I come to my users manager and I come to where the privileges are shown, um, I have this table here, which is a table inside here. So this is where I want to list all my privileges. So I'll need to get this table. So I'll give it an ID and I'll call it user privileges. It's very important for me to give it an ID because now I can't give it user privileges because I have another user privileges here. I'll say user privileges table like that. It's important so that I am targeting this table. Then this table, inside it, I'll have a T body. Then inside the T body is where I'm going to list all my privileges. So I'm just going to put a table row, a table division with the checkbox, and the other row that has now the description of what that privilege is. So it will look a bit nicer. So let's just try that and see how that works out. So the table ID is this. So what I'll do is I'll declare a variable here, constant uh, user privileges table. Then give it, I'll say jQuery. jQuery uses CSS selectors. I think I explained that last time. So I'll say just similarly to how we use CSS selectors, is how you're going to use the selectors inside here. So hash will mean ID. Then that is the ID of the table. So once I have that, I can create a function here that says get user get objects as table. So just want to get the objects from the server, then I want to convert them into a table. So jQuery has an interesting way of fetching data. So I can say jQuery. So every time you want to launch jQuery, simply say $sign, then you say get JSON. That will usually get you data formatted as JSON. So I don't need to get the data, then convert it back to JSON. Rather, if I was using a regular fetch API by the browser, I'll get the data, then the data will give me a promise. Then I wait for the promise to resolve. Once the promise has resolved, then I convert the object into now a JSON object. Now that is a bit of work that will be done by this one function of jQuery. That's why I really love it because it has simplified that particular process of being able to get to fetch data. So what you're going to do, it has three parameters or maybe just two parameters. First of all, you have to provide the URL where the data is coming from. So this URL, as you can see, I'll have to jump outside where this file is. Then I have to go inside a file folder called controllers. Then inside controllers, I'll get user operations. So to jump outside, I'll simply say dot slash that jumps outside. Then go inside controllers. Then inside controllers, look for a file called user operations.php. So that's the URL where the data is coming, what that's going to execute. Then after that, what parameters do we pass? So as you can see from here, once I have that particular path, then I only need to pass get objects and I set it to true. Yes. Somebody saying something? Okay, so the first parameter is the URL, which I want to get data. Then second is the data, the object that's going to be sent over as part of the payload. So here I'll simply say get objects. Then I set objects to true. Now there can be a third parameter here where you can just pass the data that comes. I'm assuming that this is going to be JSON, and that would still work out. But I also want to do error handling, so I can actually do that. Then if it fails for some reason, then I can do the failure down here. But sometimes I like to make it look a little bit elegant. So instead of passing that data directly, I can just say here, when this is done, then run the following callback function. Then of course, if it fails, which means there was an error. Now, whenever there's an error, also run this callback function. There are three parameters to when it fails. One of them is going to be the response that comes from the server. The other is going to be the status of the error, and of course, the other one is the actual JavaScript error itself. So um, you're going to get those three parameters. So when it fails, also you need to be able to get those three parameters. Then you can react to the one that you want to react to, or pick the one that you want to work with. If it is done, you're going to end up with some data because it's going to give you some data. Then you can now work with that data over here. So now let's first of all check what is done. I want to come to this table. So I want to come to this table, get the T body. Then I want to generate a string that displays for me all the objects over here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to declare a variable here called results. It's not a constant because I'm going to update it, and I'll assign it blank. Then what I'm going to do, I'm going to take this data that came back because it's going to come as a JSON object. That's what get JSON does. Then I'll say I loop through each of the object in that particular data, and this object I'm going to loop through it as just a regular object. Let me call it privilege. So I can say run this callback function, call it get privilege, because now it's going to go through each and every item, and that item is called privilege. Then from each privilege do the following. So I'll simply say here results, and I'll add to it. I'm going to use a template string to make it easier because adding the pluses and all that also is not very elegant when you work on concatenating variables. So a string rather is much better. So I'll say results equal to, I'll create a table row, and I'll give it an, okay, I might not need to give it an ID for now. So I'll create a table row. Then for each table row, I'll create a table division. Then inside that table division, I'm going to create an input of type checkbox. I'll give it an ID of now my privilege. Then I'll get the object ID. That's a field name. So that will be my ID. Of course, I might want to close it inside um, um, uh, single brackets like that. So once I have that input, I'll close the input. Then I'll now display a label next to it. So I can simply say the label that's going to be next to it would be something like the privilege dot, I think it's called object name if I'm not wrong. Then I'll simply cross the table division that I've just created like that. Then of course once I'm done, I can close my table row. So it's going to loop through all the privileges, and every time it's looping through the privileges, it's going to be creating a table row, then a table division, then it's going to be creating an input, which is a checkbox, then it's going to attack this, then close that, then of course close the row, and it's going to continue over and over for all the table, for all the rows that we're going to fetch from the database. So a nice thing too. So whether they are 10, they are 100, they are a million, it's actually going to do all that and repeat that process for us. Now, the other thing is I just need to pick this table. Once that is done, I'll pick this table and I'll find its T body because the table has a head and a body. Then inside the body, I'll change the HTML of the body based on the results that I've generated here. So this ideally should be able to list for us all the privileges that we have from our database. Now, this is a function, so we have not called it yet. So I can copy it, the function name, and either come up here and say get existing objects. Then I call that function like that. Now, once that is done, if everything is fine and I refresh this page, that should work out. Now, This would not work out like this, so I need to run it from its actual source. So I'll need to come and say local host. Then I need to go to Expedia. Then inside Expedia, uh, I have that users manager directly on the root. So it means that this was wrong because this one means jump outside that. So I'm not jumping outside, I'm simply going inside controllers directly because user manager is actually on the outside. So that was a mistake, and I think that's correct. So with that now, this should allow me to, if I refresh this, you can see now I have the privileges listed over here. So I have manage airline, manage airports, manage cities, manage counties and countries rather, and they are arranged alphabetically. So if you come to my database here, as far as objects are concerned, and you open it, it's actually here, you'll find that those are the things that we had. I can have here and say manage users, and I say this is 2x001. So when I add manage users and I come and I refresh this, now you can say I have also manage users. That is how you add the privileges so that now the users can be able, the person who is creating the user can be able to take which privileges are available. Now, very important is for us to have a select all at the top here. So I can just come and say select all. And I also don't like these lines over here. And I prefer this table to be borderless. So as I think I gave that table class borderless. So let me just come to users manager and I'll simply say table is a table, then it's table borderless. If I'm not wrong. No, that's not it. Anyway, we'll fix the borders later. What's important is for us to be able to access these privileges as you see. So we can put one at the top there that says select all, or I can put it at the bottom here that says select all. It depends on where we would like to have it. Some people would like to have it at the bottom there that says select all. So I can come after the table. I don't need to have spaces here on the table body. This is table borderless, not tabale. I think I'm a bit sloppy today. Yeah, so you can see now the borders are not there, and that's actually good. So what you could actually provide for our styles to reduce the margins left and right and those kind of things. So the housekeeping we can probably do much later. So probably here what I can do is just add a bit of space here so that now the name and the checkbox are a bit far apart. Something like that. Okay. So yeah, so you can see now we are able to add the privileges. So the next thing is to be able to now save our user. So we need to save our user. Now because I accidentally removed the stored procedures, I didn't update the stored procedures last time. I think let me just go ahead and recreate them so that my work becomes a little bit easier in terms of once I provided the details, I check if the user exists, and if the user does not exist, then you can go ahead um, and uh, and save their details. If the user exists, we tell the person the user exists, so they need to probably choose another username or something of the sort. So all this had been done last time, but again, because my database was corrupted for some reason, let me just go ahead and recreate them. So I'll just refer back to my um, users object because it has the things you need to create a user. So when you're checking the user, you need the user ID and the username. So it's check username. So I'll come here, right click, specify sp check username. This one we had done last time, so I'm only repeating it because I don't have them and I need to be able to, uh, use them. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to say here user ID, which is integer, and username, which is variable character 50 in length, like that. So of course, I'm going to simply say select all fields from this table called users, where user ID is not equal to the user ID provided, but the username is equals to the username I provided. course, I'll jump this one down. The end should be down here, like that. Then I'll put there a semicolon to terminate the statement. It's HTML. This should be where. If everything is okay and I run it, I won't see any errors, which is good enough. Then I can save my user. So sp save user. Did we call it save user or we simply said save user? Yes. So save user has various fields. Um, User ID, username, first name, last name, password, salt, email, mobile, system admin, and added by. So we can add those ones. So you can go ahead and save user. So we have so we have user ID, which is integer, first name, which is also variable character 50 or 100. We have last name, variable character 100. We also have I think in that order they have to follow each other. So user ID, username, first name, last name, password, salt, mobile, email. So I have user password, variable character 100, the salt, which is variable character 50. I think it's mobile and email. I don't know the order they follow each other, but I need to confirm that. Sorry. So we have mobile, email, and system administrator. So mobile is variable character 50. Email address is also variable character, will be 100. System admin is boolean, and of course, added by is integer. So I just create these ones in a new line so we are able to see all of them like that. That is much better. Then I'm just going to remove this. Then of course we had two options. We said if user ID is 0, then we create a new user. Otherwise, we update a new user. So this one would be insert into the users table. I'll pick the values. So in the users table, that's necessary, not necessary. In the users table rather, I'll have username, first name, last name, password, salt, system admin, date added, and added by. Did I leave any field? Yes, I left mobile and email. So I'll come to this table, I'll alter it, and I'll say mobile, which is variable character 100, and email address, which is variable character also 100, like that. So I'll save this. I'll come back to my procedure here. I will add those two. So after system admin, I have now my mobile and email address, like that. Then of course I can also bring these ones down so that the view is looking nice, like that. Then now insert the values. So for username, I will insert username. For first name, I'll insert first name. For last name, I'll insert last name as my variable. For password, I'll insert user password. For salt, I will insert salt variable. For system admin, I'll insert system admin variable. Jump downwards. For mobile, I'll insert mobile variable. For email, I'll insert email address variable. For date added, it will be the current date and the time. And for added by, I'll insert the added by variable. So that should be able to create a new user for me. Now to update a user, I'll simply say update. So if this user ID provided is not 0, it means you're going to be updating based on the user ID that have been provided here. So if it's 1, based on user ID number 1, and so forth and so forth. So here I'll say update, then I'll specify the table name. Then now I'll set my fields. So I'll have username will be equal to username, first name will be equal to first name. So field value, last name will be equal to last name. Then you also have password. We don't change password and salt. So system admin will go with this system admin variable. Mobile will go with the mobile variable. Email address will go with the email address variable. Is there any other? I think that's basically it. Then of course you need to specify where this user ID is equals to the user ID that was provided. Now, so this should be able to create for us back our save user stored procedure, which we had called um, on this code over here. So as you can see, we already called this save user, and we should be now good to go. All right. So I think that is. Then you also need to get all the users. We need to get all the users, which is get all users. We need to get user details, and of course that. So let's just do that. We get all the users and we get the users details. So get all users. We're just going to come back to this database again. Right click, create a new sort procedure, sp get all users, like that. Again, get all users doesn't have any variable or any parameters, so just remove these comments and this. So here what you're going to say is this is going to select user.all fields. Then I'm going to concatenate added by dot first name and a space and added by dot last name as added by name from this is going to be the users table as you. Then I join it to itself. This is called cardinality, but then I'll give it a new alias called A because I'm referring to the A for these two fields. So on A dot added by a dot user ID rather is equals to u dot added by. So I can order by first name. Since first name is ambiguous, I'll say u dot first name and u dot last name, just in case they have similar first names, like that. So I'll execute that. It's going to run. Then I'll get the user's details again. sp get user details. Now user details will require user ID. At least that one I know. So there'll be one variable called user ID. I need to specify the user ID that I want to get, which is an integer. Then I'm just going to say here, um, select all fields from this users table where the user ID, sorry, is equals to the user ID I have provided, like that. That should be able to give me that. I think that should be able to recreate what we had achieved last time without any pressure. So that should mean that everything else should be able to work fine. So now our challenge here would be to save the user. So to save the user, we're going to come to user operations over here. Now on user operation, what you're going to do is we're going to get the parameters from the form: user ID, username, first name, last name, password. Then we're going to generate a salt, which is basically generating a random string of 20 characters. This function you'll find it inside DB here. Generate random string. You can see it's here. So it's just going to generate a random 20-digit string and give you that. So once it's done with that, it will take it will get a new variable called user password. Then it will hash using SHA-56 the password and the salt. Then of course now that password is going to be very complicated. Nobody can actually be able to decrypt it back. So that's how we manage security. Then of course the rest would be I'll save a response here. So I'll save the user. Once I save the user, I will end up with a user ID. So when I'm saving the user, The other thing I need to be careful about once I save my user is probably maybe say I'll need to return the ID that was created if the ID is created so that I now can use that to be able to modify the privileges or add the privileges. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to say select last insert ID is a function into this user ID variable. So what it basically means that once I create a user, it's going to go to the table, get the ID that was inserted last, and store it inside this variable. Now, of course, if the user is being edited, we already have the user ID. So the only thing we need to do is down here is to select user ID as user ID. So whether the user has been created a new or we're just editing, we're going to get the details of the user as far as this is concerned. So once we have that user ID, then we can now be able to add the privileges. So I'll simply say here, user ID will be response 0, then probably I'll say user ID. Will that work out? No, it's usually not dot, but it's usually that. I think that would work out. So because I'm expecting that this response, let me just see how that response comes out anyway. So when we save our user, actually it's still, so when you save successfully, um, let's just say record set equals to that. Then here we'll say user ID is equals to RST or record set user ID. Yeah, so I'll have that. Once I save a user, I'll have the user ID. Then from here, I can be able to pick the user ID directly. I don't need to do that because I didn't convert it back to a JSON object. It's just a regular, um, it's just a regular array. Okay, so that should give me that. Now, once I have my user ID, I can go ahead and save user privileges. And this way it gets interesting because for the user privileges, I'm going to get them as an object. So I'll simply say here, user privileges will be, one thing I will do is I'll pass it as a JSON object because there can be many and I don't want to go through, I don't want to pass them one by one. They have to be passed as a single string. So I'll simply say here, JSON decode, then I'll get the post of user privileges. I'll convert it back to an array. But then here what I can do is because I can be expecting it to have some very crazy string, I can simply say something like what is that function called? The function for removing social string is called I am forgetting the name, huh? Um, well, I think this will still work out, but let's see. I'll add the function later on just in case it doesn't work out. This should be it's called strip c slashes. So I can strip c slashes, strip c, strip c slashes. So it's going to remove any slashes that are not good. So let me just confirm that it's a function. Yes, strip c slashes is a function. So it will go. It's going if there are any special characters in this, it's going to remove them so that now they're not treated as dot. So once I have that user privilege, the only thing I can do is just to look through it because it's going. I've converted it to an array, so you can see JSON decode because I have encoded it. When I'm sending it over, I need to decode it back to a normal array. That's why I'll set the last variable to true. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to say for each, then I'll say user privileges as user privilege singular. Okay, so the privilege usually I'll just pass it as um, um, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, of course, with its value, whether it is checked or not. So it's also very important for me to go through. So I'll simply come here, uh, object ID. Then the object ID, what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick user privilege. Then I'm going to pass the object ID, the field name. You're going to see how that works out on the user interface. Then I'll have valid, and that will be user privilege valid. Then once I'm done with that, I just save the user privilege. So I'll save the privilege. So what I'm going to do is I need to save the privileges here. So I'll come back to my database, create an install procedure, say sp save user privilege. Now saving this user privilege is a bit interesting. Two things I need to have. Um, I need to provide the user ID, which is integer. I need to provide whether it's valid. So that's going to be an integer. I need to provide who added it. It's also an integer. All of them are integers, unfortunately. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to check uh, if exists. Select all fields from this table called user privileges, where I'm just checking if the privilege exists. If the privilege exists, or if object ID, I also need the object ID here, which is integer, like that. Where object ID is equals to object ID, and username user ID equals to user ID, and valid or active is equals to 1. So if that exists, then you just need to update it. Otherwise, you create a new one. Because we don't want to replicate privileges that do exist. So if it exists, then the only thing you would say is if um, valid is equals to 0, then just go ahead and cancel it. You say update this table called user privileges, then you set this active is equals to 0. Then of course you say where these two conditions are true. So in short, if I remove the right from the user, I should come again and update that right has been revoked. So it's only going to be applicable if the right is revoked. Otherwise, if the right uh, is not revoked, then we'll add a new one. So adding a new one, we're just going to say insert, because you can see up to this point, I'm checking even up to the point that it is active. I'm checking where it is up to active. So if it is not active, then that is not going to be returned. So once I cancel one, in the future, if I want to add a new privilege, it's just going to insert a new row altogether. So that's the difference. So I'll insert the user privileges here. Then I'll put my values here. I'll come and say I need object ID. Sorry, object ID, user ID, active, date added, whoever added it. So here we're just going to say um, and then again, this one will also be depend on if it is active or not. So I'll just say if um, valid, because we don't want to add rights that you don't have. If valid is equals to one, is it one rather, then that's the only time you do this. But if I say don't have that right, don't even go ahead and add it. So object ID will be object ID, user ID will be user ID, active would be one, date added will be the current date and time, and added by will be added by, like that. So, and then of course I need to end this if. So you can see I'm trying to build different logics at different levels to make my application a little bit easier to debug and very, very scalable. So in future, if I need to change anything that involves any user privileges, I don't need to fiddle around with my back end to do that. The database should be able to handle that on its own. That's why I have moved the logic inside the database. So I'll run that. If everything is okay, it should tell me it's successful, and indeed it is. So we can just go ahead and now execute this save privilege. So I'll come back to my code. I'll declare another function here inside users. So there'll be a new method called save privilege function. Save user privilege. Save user privilege. So I'll call this SQL statement. I have user ID, object ID, and valid. Object ID is a bit not well formed. So let me just debug it. So the object ID should be single T, because this is single T and this is also single T. Yeah, so that's why sometimes you end up with errors. So it's good when you see them, you just arrest them immediately. Okay, so added by an int. So added by is not a big deal because that should be the user who has logged into the system. So for now, I will just use the default added by. So I'll pass these three variables again. These ones are going to be inside curly braces because they are variables like that. So this will be this dot user ID. So I'll show you why we get that. This means the current object. So the current object is managed under this DB, and within this DB, when we are constructing this, because we don't have a user logged in yet. So let's just say here is we get a new function called underscore underscore construct. What will happen is this function, every time a new object is created, because this will be created a new object, it's going to execute this code over here. And that's a good thing because then we have control over how each element is created. So I'll simply say declare a user ID here. So public user ID, that is there. So I'll simply say this dot user ID will be set to, if you have a session variable called user ID, because ideally once a user logs in, we're going to save that, then pick that session variable. So that should be question mark, pick that session user ID variable. Otherwise, specify it as 1. So it means the user ID will be 1 in the event that the user is not logged in. So we're going to remove this in future because we want users to be able to log in so that they can perform operation. But that should be able to handle this user ID should be able to handle for us this user who is currently logged in to add that particular user. That's how it kind of like works. Then here I can simply say again the current object get data SQL. Then I can just return and simply say status is successful, and the message is user privilege added successfully. Not a big deal because it's going to be a loop, so our attention is not going to be so much on that. But we can now pick this method and execute it inside this use operation. So we can say when you do that, I'll simply say this user, then execute that. Save privilege. So I have user ID, which is user ID here, which I've gotten here. So that's okay. Object ID is here, valid is also here. So that should be able to be okay. Then once I'm done, I can now output the entire response that we actually got from here, whether the user exists or not. So you can see it's actually a very elaborate process where this is now happening. This is now happening several times. It's going to execute that several times because we're going to pass an array to justify that. So you can see that now looks nice. And I want to believe that that should be able to allow us to save our user. So now the only thing is to go back to the UI and be able to now push this data inside this particular controller so that we see how that actually works out. So let's go back to our control. Let's go back to our user interface here. So what you're going to do here is we will be able to pick as many fields as possible. So we have user ID will be the query user ID. So this will be user ID field. We're just picking the values. Then username field will be equals to get element by ID username. Also our first name field that will be first name. Then you also have last name field that will be equivalent to last name. We also have password field, no dollar sign, that will be equivalent to password. Then we also have confirm password field, that will be equal to confirm password. Sorry, confirm password. We also have a system admin field, that will be also system admin. Do we have any other field that we have not mentioned? So let's do this. Come back here. So we have system. Okay, we don't have system admin. We have mobile and email address. Mobile field. Then we have email address field is equals to email address, like that. Then we have change password on logon, which is equals to change password on logon. Okay, so the field that I'm missing is system admin field. So I can come back here. I can come back to the UI, um, see what it looks like. So I can, after email address or just before mobile, I can say system admin. So it's either yes or no. By default, of course, it's no. So I can come just before mobile here. I can create a column with a form group. I'll put a label there, say system admin. So I ask you the system administrator. I'll use a drop down list. You can use a checkbox if you want. So select system admin and then from control SM. So system admin. Okay. Then once I have that field over there, I can just check that is there. I can actually put two values, which is either yes or no. So option, by default, it's no, but you can choose yes, like that. So if I run this again, no, it's on this. If I run this again, so you can say I've system admin by default it's no, or you can change here. So I have all those other fields. So this is excellent. So now I have all the fields. Why is it not giving me back my why is it not giving back my privileges? There's a problem. So let me check what the issue is. Because ideally it should give me back my so it's saying password, which means that's JavaScript objects. So dollar sign password, password should be hash. Change password and logon. Don't have that. Okay, let's try again. So you can see you will be bringing application back and forth, and you need to be able to debug as you are going um, to be messing up with your application. So, Classroom, you're telling me some people are in the waiting room. I think that is overtaken by events. I asked everyone to accept the invitation that I sent so that they can just accept the classes without any issue. But if they have an issue with them not being able to be added to the class, they can also share their names, their email addresses, so I'll be able to add them on the list. I'll share the video later on. They can be able to follow it later on. Now, then we also have the save button. So save user button. Here I'll have save user. Now I want to believe that these fields are actually labeled like that. So save user, it's save user, which is okay. Perfect. So the other ones are email address, mobile, system admin. So let me just check. So email address, mobile, system admin. I'm just checking that the labels are actually okay. Change password on login. This is login, not logon. So you can see I messed it up, but that's okay. I want to believe user ID is there. User ID. I didn't put user ID, so I just need to add it here. So input that is hidden with an ID of user ID. I'll give it a default value of 0 because when you're adding a new user, the value is usually 0, so it can be able to add it. So that's okay. Username, first name, last name, that's okay. Password, confirm password, change password, login. Yeah, I think those are okay. So the only other thing we need to add here is a place where you can show notifications. So this is to show any notifications. Maybe say there are problems, you need to provide these, maybe incorrect mobile phone number format and all that kind of stuff. So all of those details are going to come inside here. So now I'll come and add my notifications there. So notifications equals notifications. So now let's listen to the user saving. So I'll collapse this and I'll say save user. Okay. Save user, I'll simply say save button. Save the button. When you click on it, run the following callback function. You can actually use an arrow function at this point. It's okay, it's allowed. Now, I'll convert these ones into variables that I can now send over to the server. So I'll say constant user ID is equals to user ID field dot value. Then I'll say username equals username field dot value. I'll say password equals password field dot value. Confirm password equals confirm password field dot value. Then you also have first name and last name. So first name equals first name field dot value, last name equals last name field dot value, then mobile will be mobile field dot value, email address will be email address field dot value, system admin will be system admin field dot value. So that's actually okay. So now we have all these as variables. So now the other thing we need to do is to check for blank fields. I'm going to assume that only the username, the password, first name, and last name fields are the ones that are mandatory. So I'll simply say here if username is equals to blank, I can declare another variable here called errors blank. So if username is blank, I'll simply say errors is equals please provide username. Then I'll set focus on that field. That's why I declare them as variable because I'll use them over and over like that. So I'll send the focus on that name. Then otherwise, I'll check if I set the password is equals to blank, and I'll say actually I'll just say if password is blank. Okay, so I want the password at least to be there. So I'll say errors is equals please provide a password. Then I'll set the focus on the password field like that. Then I can now come and check if password fields are the same. So I'll say else if password is equals to confirm password. If they are not the same, rather, then I'll generate an error. Password entries should match. I don't need to focus on anything else. Then I'll simply check if because I also need your names. First name is equals to blank. Errors is equals please provide first name. Then I set the focus on first name. Focus like that. Otherwise, if last name is blank, then I'll tell them to provide their last name. So errors will be equal to please provide last name. And then I'll set the focus on last name. Mobile and email, I'm assuming they're not going to be a must. So user can provide or not. Perfect. So after that, the only thing we need to check is if the errors variable is blank, which means none of these errors occurred because when I was creating it, I initialized it to a blank value. So if the error variable is blank, it means you can go ahead and save. Otherwise, you can display the errors. So what I can say is I'll come to this notification.html and I'll say errors. It should be able to display those errors over there. Now, if there are no errors, the other thing I need to do is to come and generate the privileges. So what I can say here is user privileges will be a blank array. So I want to be able to generate user privileges based on what has been ticked. So if I tick, I'll pick the object ID and the tick status, so whether it's valid or not. Because if you look at the code that we had over here to save the user, actually here, you can see we were saying it's either valid and there's an object ID. So there will be two things, object ID and valid. So we also need to create an object that looks like that. So I'll come back to this and I'll come and say, I'll get this table because we defined as a table already. Then I'll go to the T body. Now inside the T body, I'll also go and find, there's an easy way of doing this. Every input of, though there's only one type, checkbox. And of course, I can get the ones that have been checked. So I can add here checked. That will only get me the ones that are checked. But again, let me just make it simpler so that. But again, we can actually make it complicated. That's why we have AI anyway. So I can come here to. And I'm just trying to show you how to use something like ChatGPT to be able to get properties and stuff like that. It's not going to write your code really, but you're just basically using it as a as a search engine. So when I say that, and I'll say I want to get all inputs of type checkbox from tbody that are checked, because we only need the ones that are checked. The ones that are not checked, we don't need to. Actually, we need all of them because I might want to remove those privileges. So I think we just need to get all of them. Now from here, once I get, I'll simply say each. Then I run, because this is jQuery, I run this function. It will get me the current object. It will get me the current object. So this statement here is going to go to the table body. It's going to find all the inputs that are of type, this is misspelled, of type checkbox. So it's going to come to this table, sorry, this table over here, and it will pick each and every checkbox, whether it is ticked or not. So that's what this statement here means. So once it picks every object, now I can be able to act on them. So I can say um, current checkbox, current checkbox is equals to the current object that is being selected. Then I'll simply say a constant called object ID will be the current checkbox dot uh, prop property, sorry, ID, and valid will be the current checkbox dot property checked. If the check property is 1, then check 1, otherwise put 1, otherwise put 0. So that will check if the current checkbox is checked, check valid is 1. If the current checkbox is not checked, which means it's return false, then 0. So I'm trying to combine a little bit of the things that we had learned in JavaScript to show you how we put up an application together, right? So that should do that. Then once I'm done with that, I can simply take now my array, which is user privileges here. Then I'll say push. Then I'll create a new object with two fields, that is object ID, which will have the object ID, and of course valid, with valid, not values, valid, which will have the valid. So that should now populate all the privileges for me as an array of objects. Now, once I'm done with that, then what I need to do is I can simply say because I need to change this, I need to let it, because I need to convert it to a string. So I'll just say let. If I make it const, I cannot be able to change its properties later on into the future. So let me use it as a regular variable. So once I'm done, I'll simply say user privileges will be equal to JSON dot stringify the user privileges. So it will convert it to a JSON string, which is what we want to pass. You can't pass an array. You can't pass an array of object to PHP. You can only pass a string. So that's why we stringify it. So convert to a JSON string. Then of course the other thing we need to do is just go ahead and save. So save our user, and now we're going to be able to get the feedback back from the server. So I'll simply say jQuery.post. Again, I'm using jQuery. You can use the fetch API directly. You can simply say um, uh, fetch, then you give the API, then you listen to the dot then, which means it is going to return a promise. Once that promise has been resolved, you can convert it back to a JSON object, then you play around with it. But again, for my case, this should be able to work just fine. So for posts, I'll need two variables. So first of all, I'll go to controllers, then I will go to user operations .php. Then I will pass the data that wants to be saved. So first of all, I'll say save user, which I'll return to true, because if you look at this user's operation, when I'm trying to save a user, I'll say save user, then user ID. So I'll pass all these other fields, then I'll wait for the feedback. So I'll simply say um, user ID. Now, why I define these variables like this? You can see I define these variables exactly the way they appear on this other side. So you can see I defined them exactly the way they appear on this other side, and that was by design because I don't want to type a lot of code because ideally I'm supposed to see something like user ID is equals to user ID, something like that. But because this is the field name and this is the variable name, so this is my variable name from here. This is the field name from here. So because they are the same, I can simply just omit one and it makes my code easy. So you can write it like that, or if they're the same, I simply put one like that. That will still be able to work out. So I like doing it like that so that my code is much faster. So user ID, username, yeah, first name, last name, first name, last name. I have system admin, I have password, I also have mobile and email. The order does not matter. Here, the order does not matter so long as you have passed all of them. So I think I've passed all of them. So once that is done, I can simply come here and I'll run a callback function with the data that has come back. Okay, now the data that has come back is a little bit tricky because I need to know if it is a JSON object. If it's a JSON object, it means that no error occurred. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I think I have a function here called is JSON. So if I say if is JSON, do you know try a function called is JSON? We don't have functions. Oh, okay. My bad. So we need to create a function here. Or did we write it? Okay, we create a function file here, function.js. Then we need to again pass over a function here. So because I had written this before, I don't want to invent the wheel. Let me just copy it from a previous uh, program that I had done. So I have functions here. Then I just get is JSON. So that I don't need to struggle so much with typing it over and over again. So I'll just write the function there and I'll simply say if is JSON, as you can see. It will tell me whether it's a JSON object or not, and I can carry on with that. So the only thing I need to include it is come to my users manager here and require that file called a function.js. So script here, script. It must have a source, and this one is JS. Then I have functions.js like that. So that should be able to take care of it. At least we'll test and see if it works out. So if it is JSON, then it means it's fine. Everything went fine. Otherwise, there was an error. So if there was an error, I can simply tell the user there was an error. So come to my notifications here. So this email address should be email address, not email. And that's why it's good to define variables exactly the same way. So sometimes they'll be able to tell you some mistakes as far as your code is concerned. So I'll just pick the notification here and I'll state here .html and I'll simply say um, sorry, an error occurred. Then I'll output the error like that. Now, otherwise, I'll simply say data equals JSON.pass. Now, you remember, is JSON only checks if the format is JSON, but does not actually convert it into a JSON object. So this JSON.pass is what actually converts it to a JSON object. So that now from here I can say if um, data.status was successful, then I can output and I say notifications.html. The user was saved successfully, like that. Otherwise, else if data.status is equals to exists. So if it exists, we tell them, sorry, the username is already in use because we'll check the username that provided. Say, sorry, user name already in use. And that should be able to finalize for us the entire application on how we can be able to save our user. I know that has been a mouthful, so probably the only thing we're going to do is just to test and see if it is working, and if there are any pieces of codes to debug, then we can also remove them. So ideally, that's what this is going to be all about. So now we've written the entire code, we've done the database, we have done the object, we've done the controller, we've also done our user interface, and at the same time, we have done the JavaScript code that now allows us to be able to validate the data and push that data to the server and get feedback and respond to the user as appropriate. That is a very, very big feat because ideally, in terms of a CRUD application or create, read, update, and delete operations, then this is ideally what happens. You have to create a user interface, you have to validate the data, you have to send the data over to the server, you have to process it, and you have to give back feedback where now you can also be able to tell the user exactly what transpired. And if everything is okay, I want to believe that this portion of the program should be able to work. So we will start by trying to save empty fields. So you can see it tells you provide username over here. We can format that later to look nicer, maybe give it a background, maybe give it an alert class or something of the sort to make it look a little bit nicer. I mean, again, at the end of the day, you just want to be able to create nice looking UIs. But as you can see, it tells me to give the username. I can simply say here test user. So I can try again. You can see it's asking me for password. I can say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Though ideally I should have put first name first. So once I put a password, it tells me password entries do not match. So I also need to put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm just testing if all my validations are working. Then I say save. It tells me I need my first name. So this is Richard. Save. I also need last name. You can see it did not check last name. That is bad. So since he did not check last name, let's see how that works out. So last name was a problem. So why did he not check last name? So we have last name here, last name field is here. So last name here, last name field is here. So we simply checked last name. So it means that this is the problem, this last name. So I can come to my user interface. Last name, last name, last name. So last name, last name. Looks okay. Looks okay, looks okay. But then I'm seeing the server, okay, last name is did not pass, but I'm seeing the server also returned an error. It is saying um, save user expected 9 but got 10. But also email was not provided. So user operations, line number that. So that should have been email address. So I'll just rectify that. Come to user operations. This should be email address. Then it's saying that save user expected 9 got 10. So save user is actually here. It expected 9 but got 10. So what we can do is we can just echo this statement. Let's just see. So we can output that actual statement. Then we come back to our database and we come to save user. We can see we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. So what do we miss? So we can come here, minimize this a bit, bring it down. So I have user ID. So you can see I didn't pass username here. That's my mistake. So username is important, which is variable character 100. So you can see when you define this code nicely, even detecting your errors becomes very easy. So I'll run that and I'll try to execute this all over again. I'll just try to execute this all over. So there's a null here. I'll just to try to execute this. I'll give them privileges here, three of them, and I just want to check the network. I just want to see what has been passed. So I'll probably I didn't change anything on my JavaScript. So I'll save. So you can see undefined key email address on user operations dot line number 16. So use email address. So if I pick this payload, I have email address. It's actually there, or it has a double L. So you can see I also misspelled that. So those ones are going to be errors that you're going to be encountering over and over again. But again, at least it's much easier to come and figure out how they can be dealt with. So I'll come with my email address is not double L, should be single L, like that. So again, because that is a change in JavaScript, I have to reload this page. Every time you change your JavaScript, you have to load the page. Well, I can reload the page. Sorry. I can also keep the inspect open. Then I come to network. I'm interested in seeing what is being sent over. So this one should have been test user. Richard, last name is Akewa. Password is 12345. Confirm is 12345. Change password, no system administrator, no. I can say yes. Mobile is that. Email is that. Then I'll give them some three privileges like that. I try to save. Um, do I have an error on the console? It's saying email address field is not defined. Line number 52. Line number 52. Oh yeah, should be single L. Again, you make those mistakes, um, but it's good that you fix them. So we try again. We have that. We have that. We have the password 12345 and password 12345, and we give them some three privileges, and we save. And still, that means there's a console error, or what is it? There's no console error. Let's check the network. Use operations. Get objects or save. That's not saving. That's strange. Um, that is very strange. What could have happened? What could have happened? What could have happened? So we just need to test it again. Over here, I'll simply say console.log the errors. Console log the errors from here. Let me run it from here. I like Chrome a lot as a development tool, so I'll just run it here on Chrome. If you love um, Edge, that's okay. So here I'll say I have a test user. First name is Richard Nyango. One, two, three, four, five. One, two, three, four, five. Mobile is that, and email is that, and I give three privileges. And of course, I inspect, and I come to network, and I say save, and password entries do not match. Okay, one, two, three, four, five, and I put also one, two, three, four, five, and I save. It's quiet, so I come back to console. It's not giving me anything. No errors. Line number 75. Let me see. So console.log errors is blank. So if errors is blank, okay, then I'll just need to console.log here data. So it basically means that maybe when I was outputting this data, though it should have sent me over, I should have echoed. Yeah, actually I've echoed the response. So I think everything should be alright. Think everything should be alright. So control F5 to refresh it. Is it my machine that's, I think my machine is somehow, my machine is running out of memory, that's why. So I know the code should work, so I'll just push the code online. After confirm that it's working, then you can be able to try it on your own. But I think my machine is running out of memory. That's why it's behaving like this, because I think the memory was much lower. So it's now trying to be able to fix to see how to fix things out. But ideally, that is what we need to cover today. So I'll just check that it works before I publish it. But generally, that's the principles that is there as far as creating our user is concerned. I think I'll take a break at that because it's also past the hour of the class. Then I can give us an opportunity to ask for any questions or comments as far as the class is concerned. Then we can be able to carry over from there. Any question or comment? I'll make the code available for us to review, just in case. I'll also make the video recording available. If there's anything that I'll correct, I'll also notify you on the chat on exactly what could have been the error and how I corrected it. So I'll give us an opportunity to ask for any questions. Then, if there are none, I'll be able to stop the class at that. I'll upload it and share it with you for those who are not able to attend the class to be able to review it. Okay, any question or comment? You can use the chat right now because I have switched the screen. So now I'm on the other screen where I can now be able to see your chat. So I'm not seeing any hands up. I'm not seeing any microphone on, and I'm not seeing any chat on the any message on the chat. So with that, I will assume that there is no question. So I think I'll end the class at that. Then maybe we will go ahead and have the next one. So we'll see what happens. But in the meantime, I'll just check what the error is, and I'll be able to correct it and advise as appropriate. Okay. Have a wonderful day, and we talk again next time. Thank you.